"Mom, can you just sign this? It's just a formality." My son smiled, and his wife poured me a glass of wine. But in that stack of papers was the power to control my bank account, my house, and my entire life. I raised him with all my heart, only for him to use the law to cage me? They say weddings bring people together. But that afternoon, sitting near the back of the room with a name tag that didn't even say mother of the groom, I realized something awful. Sometimes a wedding quietly shows you how far apart you've really grown. I'd spent 2 weeks prepping for that day. Not just my outfit or hair. I dug out the dusty pink dress I'd been saving since Tom passed, and told myself this would be the day Drew and I found our way back to each other. He used to call me for everything: how to unclog a sink, jump a car, write a good apology. But over the years, the calls became texts, then late replies, then silence. Not cruel. Just quiet neglect. When he told me he was marrying Cassidy, Cass, as he called her, it was over a rushed phone call. I congratulated him. Asked about the wedding. He said it would be simple but elegant, and didn't ask about my availability or ideas. I offered to bake the pie I used to make for his dad. He chuckled and said, "That's sweet, Mom," then moved on. Still, I stayed hopeful. That's what mothers do. We thread hope through disappointment and call it love. The wedding was held at a resort 2 hours outside Asheville. Wood beams, fairy lights, lake views, the kind of place that looks perfect on social media. I arrived early, as I always do. A young woman at the front handed me a name badge. It read Eleanor Whitmore. No title. No ribbon. Just my name. Inside, soft music and clinking glasses filled the space. I spotted Drew across the room, laughing with Cass, surrounded by strangers. He didn't see me. One of the staff waved me toward the back, table 12. I passed signs that read bride's family, groom's friends, maid of honor's parents. Mine just said Eleanor. I sat between a man from Atlanta who sold insurance and a woman from Vermont who raised alpacas. Neither knew Drew. They spoke over me about travel and property taxes. I nodded politely and adjusted my hem. When the toasts began, Cassidy's father spoke. Then her brother. Then her college roommate, who told a story about tequila and skinny dipping. At one point, someone asked, "Will the groom's mom say a few words?" Cassidy giggled and said, "Maybe later," then turned away. That laugh stayed with me. Dinner was served. Chicken with lemon glaze, dry and cold. I picked at it. No one at my table finished theirs either. The dessert looked better than it tasted. One bite of lemon tart, and all I felt was the bitter. Drew danced with Cass. Then with her mom. Then someone's aunt. I waited. Smoothed my dress. Smiled at a photographer who passed twice without raising his camera. By the end of the night, I was still sitting at that table, surrounded by empty glasses and unfinished meals. No one said goodbye. No one noticed when I slipped out. Outside, the air had cooled. I walked to my car, heels clicking against the gravel, wishing, just once, Drew would call out, "Mom, wait. I didn't get to dance with you." But he didn't. I drove home in silence. 2 days later, I found the program still in my purse. I opened it again, looking for a mention of me. Anything. But it was all Cassidy's side, bridesmaids, family tributes, even a Jane Austen quote. Nothing about the woman who gave birth to the groom. But I wasn't angry. Not yet. Anger takes energy. I just felt heavy. The kind of sadness that makes your body slow. Like walking through wet sand. A week later, Drew called. His voice sounded rehearsed. He said Cass had plans and he thought it'd be nice for the two of us to catch up. Said he had something for me to look over. Just getting ahead of things, he said. I should have known. But mothers always hope, don't we? I said yes. I baked oatmeal cookies, his childhood favorite, wrapped them in foil. I wore the cardigan he used to love when he was little, the one with pearl buttons. Not to guilt him. Just to remember. His house was in a manicured neighborhood. Porch lights blinked on as I walked up. He gave me a quick hug at the door and led me to the kitchen. No smell of food. Just a table set for two, plates untouched. A bottle of wine uncorked. And beside the salad forks, a stack of papers neatly clipped. Drew poured the wine and said it was just peace of mind paperwork. Nothing urgent, he added. Just smart to plan ahead. I nodded, throat tightening. I reached for the top page. Legal terms filled the margins. Durable power of attorney. Immediate effect. Financial control. Medical authority. Real estate. The works. He smiled as I read. Not warmly. Like he'd rehearsed this. The pen beside the papers was already uncapped. That's when I felt it. Not fear. Not surprise. Recognition. He wasn't offering. He was executing. I didn't react. Just said, I'll take this home to read more carefully. He paused. Nodded. No guilt. No pressure. Because he thought he'd already won. I left soon after. The cookie sat untouched on his counter. In the car, I didn't turn the engine on right away. I sat there, staring at the porch light. Motion sensor. Efficient. Cold. That's when I admitted something I hadn't dared say aloud, even to myself. My son didn't want to protect me. He wanted to control me. And maybe, just maybe, he had stopped seeing me as a mother a long time ago. If you've ever found yourself quietly erased from someone's story, you're not alone. Sometimes it takes being pushed to the edges to realize you've always deserved the center. If this story spoke to something you've felt but never said, I'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts below. Let's remind each other we're still here, still seen, still strong. When I got home that night, I didn't even turn on the lights. I just stood in the dark, holding that stack of documents like it might explode if I breathed too hard. The house didn't feel like mine anymore. It felt like a waiting room. Like something had been decided for me while I was busy baking cookies and pretending things could still be normal. I dropped the papers on the kitchen table and stared at them. No one should be able to undo your life with a pen. But that's what it felt like. As if Drew, my son, had packaged my worth into a stack of forms and told me, with a glass of wine and a practiced smile, to hand it all over. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just reached for the pen he gave me and snapped it clean in half. The sound echoed in the room like a verdict. Then I walked downstairs. The basement was cold, unfinished, a bit musty. I hadn't been down there since before Tom passed. But my body moved like it knew exactly where it needed to go. Behind the paint cans and old boxes was the cabinet. His cabinet. Tom always kept it locked, but I remembered the key taped to the underside of the laundry shelf. He used to joke, if the IRS ever comes looking, tell them I died broke but organized. Inside, I found a black lockbox. It felt heavier than I remembered. Or maybe I just felt smaller than before. I carried it upstairs like it was made of glass. The key was taped underneath, of course. Tom always planned for everything, except, maybe, how our son would turn out. Inside were folders, labeled with Tom's neat, all-caps handwriting, trust, property, beneficiaries, emergency. At the very bottom, tucked under a folder marked legacy, was a single envelope with my name on it. Ellie. His handwriting hit me harder than I expected. I traced the letters with my thumb before I opened it. If you're reading this, something went wrong. I hope it wasn't Drew, but I wouldn't be surprised. Money's tricky. Love doesn't always survive it. Everything is in your name. Don't give anyone the power to undo what we built. Not even our son. Especially not him. And just below that, scrawled in the margin like an afterthought. I'm proud of you. I always was. That broke me. I sat at the table for hours, papers spread everywhere. My hands trembled as I read through them. Trusts, accounts, properties. $7 million. All mine. All protected. And yet, just one signature could have handed it all over. Suddenly, Drew's charm at dinner, the over-casual way he poured the wine, the folder already open to the signing page, the pen uncapped, felt sinister. It wasn't concern. It was choreography. I thought about the cookies I brought, still wrapped on his counter. He hadn't even touched them. At sunrise, I called Maggie Sullivan. We hadn't spoken in years, not since her husband's funeral. But I still had her number taped inside my recipe book, for legal things, Tom used to say. She answered on the second ring. Ellie? Her voice was sharper than I remembered. Clear. Steady. I need your help, I said, my voice cracking. It's Drew. There was a pause. Then, come over. And bring everything. Her home was like a time capsule of strength, polished wood, brass handles, tea that smelled like memory. She sat me down and listened to every word. She didn't flinch when I told her about the wedding. Or the dinner. Or the papers. When I showed her the documents Drew gave me, her lips tightened. This isn't estate planning, she said. This is extraction. She pointed to the phrasing. Drew and Cass had designed it to activate immediately. They would gain total control, bank accounts, investments, my home, even medical decisions. There were no safeguards. No reviews. No reversals. Maggie looked up. They expected you to sign without reading. I nodded. Because they thought you'd trust them more than yourself. We sat in silence for a moment. Then I asked the question I was terrified to say out loud. Can I stop this? Maggie didn't blink. We're going to make it impossible for them to ever try again. Over the next 4 hours, we created a trust. Bulletproof, she called it. We assigned medical proxies, locked my financials behind third-party verification, and registered the estate through a private fiduciary firm Maggie had used for years. We even added a clause: if anyone attempts coercion, manipulation, or unauthorized legal access, their inheritance is immediately revoked. When I signed the final paper, I didn't feel relief. I felt anchored. That night, I tucked the documents into a file labeled recipes and slid it between 2 cookbooks. Let them try. The next morning, Drew texted. Hey Mom, just checking in. You get a chance to look those forms over? I stared at it for a full minute. Not how are you? Not I love you. Just business. I replied. Yes. I've taken care of everything. Thanks for your concern. 30 seconds later. Great. Let us know if you need help with anything. Cass's friend has a lawyer if it feels confusing. Us. Help. The same people who served me wine and paperwork on the same table. I didn't answer. I stood by the window, watching the wind rattle the trees. One of the shutters outside had come loose. I made a mental note to fix it. Myself. Later that afternoon, I got an email. From Cass. Subject line, following up, asset transfer. No greeting. Just a forwarded doc from some online notary service and a note. Drew said you might still be reviewing. Let me know if you want us to resend the PDF with your digital signature fields active. Active. That word sent a chill down my spine. I didn't respond. I printed the email. Folded it. Added it to my file under a new label, insurance. By evening, I had changed my locks. Called the bank to set up verbal passphrase. And I made an appointment with my doctor, just in case they ever tried to raise questions about my capacity. Paranoia? Maybe. But when your own child tries to erase your autonomy with a smile and a pen, caution becomes survival. I sat down with a cup of tea and reread Tom's letter. Not for reassurance. But as a reminder. I wasn't alone. I wasn't weak. And I wasn't done. If you've ever stood at the edge of being erased and decided to draw the line instead, this story is for you. Drop a comment if this part hit home. Sometimes the quietest decisions are the loudest acts of strength. 2 weeks passed in a blur of locked drawers, updated passwords, and forced smiles at the grocery store. I felt like I was wearing someone else's skin, tight, uncomfortable, ready to split if anyone looked at me too long. Then came the knock. 3 sharp taps. Not loud, but deliberate. I peeked through the side window. Drew. Alone again. Same navy jacket. But this time, something about his stance made me uneasy, rigid, rehearsed. And then I noticed, he wasn't alone. A second figure waited by the sidewalk, partially obscured behind my azalea bushes. Cass. I opened the storm window just a crack. Mom, Drew began, can we talk? Just for a minute. I said nothing. Cass took a step forward, holding a leather tote. Her smile was tight. We brought coffee. From that place on Henderson you like, hazelnut, right? I blinked. That cafe closed 2 years ago. No, thank you, I said flatly. Drew spoke up. We just want to check in. There's been some confusion. Confusion? I repeated, biting the word. You handed me a signature page before dessert. He laughed nervously. Look, we didn't handle it well, I get that. But this silence isn't helping. Cass and I have been talking with a professional who specializes in family transitions. Elder law. She thinks maybe we should all sit down together. Sort out some responsibilities. Responsibilities, I echoed. Like turning over my house and will? Cass stepped in, too quickly. No, just helping you navigate things. You've been under stress. And we're a little concerned about some decisions lately. Her voice had changed. Coated in a sugary tone I didn't trust. My fingers tightened on the edge of the window. What kind of decisions? Cass hesitated, then pulled something from her tote, a phone. We just want to document this conversation, she said sweetly. To protect everyone involved. I froze. A red recording light blinked at me. You're recording me? I whispered. In my own home? Drew cleared his throat. It's just precautionary, Mom. If things escalate or, God forbid, you start forgetting things. You think I'm senile? I snapped. You're trying to trap me. Cass didn't flinch. No, Ellie. But it's important to have a record. You've been making some erratic choices. Locking your accounts. Changing lawyers. That's not like you. I almost laughed. You're right. It's not like the me who trusted you. They were silent. I looked at them, really looked, and saw what I hadn't wanted to see. They weren't here to help. They were here to build a case. One that would strip me of every right I still had. I slammed the window shut. From inside, I heard Drew's muffled voice, just think about it. We're only trying to help. I waited until their footsteps faded before I crumpled to the floor. Not out of weakness. Out of rage. How dare they twist my love into incompetence? How dare they try to frame my independence as instability? Later that night, I drove to Maggie's. No warning. Just knocked on her door with wind-blown hair and fury in my veins. She opened it and knew. Instantly. Inside, I laid it out, all of it. The recording. The staged visit. Cass's subtle attempt to provoke me. The way she'd kept glancing at her phone, like she was hoping I'd shout. Lose my temper. Sounds like they're building a conservatorship case, Maggie said grimly. Or laying groundwork for one. I blinked. Can they? If they can convince a judge that you're not capable of managing your affairs, yes. Especially if they claim financial exploitation, confusion, or delusion. It happens more than people think. The room spun. They want my house. My accounts. And if they can't manipulate me into signing it over, they'll say I'm losing it. Maggie nodded. This isn't about your health, Ellie. It's about control. She leaned forward. You need to go public. I frowned. What do you mean? Get ahead of the narrative. Show your clarity. Your strength. Write a statement. Hell, write a letter to your community group. Make it clear you're sharp as ever, and protected. And let me file an official notice of concern. If they try anything legally, we'll be ready. I exhaled. For the first time, not out of exhaustion, but resolve. The next morning, I posted something on the local community app. A simple message. I may be aging, but I am not fading. I still make my own choices, pay my own bills, and tend my own garden. If anyone says otherwise, they're not speaking for me. The replies flooded in. Dozens of neighbors chimed in. You've always been sharp as a tack. You taught my daughter how to write poetry. Need anything? We're here. But one reply shook me. Same thing happened to my mom. Her own sister tried to prove she was incompetent just to take her condo. Watch your back, Ellie. That night, I couldn't sleep. So I did something I hadn't done since Tom passed. I opened his journal. He wasn't a daily writer, but sometimes he'd scribble things down. Quiet thoughts. Reflections. And I found this. I worry that Drew loves safety more than truth. That he'll someday trade morality for control. If he does, I hope Ellie doesn't let him. Tears burned down my cheeks. It was as if Tom knew. And now, so did I. By the weekend, I had filed a restraining clause in the trust. If Drew or Cassidy pursued any legal motion against me regarding capacity or property, they'd forfeit inheritance rights. Maggie called it preemptive defense. I called it liberation. I mailed a sealed letter to Drew. No threats. Just the facts. You have overstepped. Any future contact must go through my attorney. Do not return to my home. And I signed it, not Mom. Just Eleanor Whitmore. That night, as I sat on the porch with a blanket across my knees, I watched the wind play in the trees. I wasn't broken. I wasn't alone. I was rebuilding. If someone's ever tried to steal your voice by calling it confusion, know this, your clarity is your armor. Tell me what this part stirred in you. Let's remind each other, we age, yes, but we do not disappear. The silence after I sent that letter was louder than any argument I'd ever had with Drew. Days passed. Then a week. No knocks. No texts. No Cass dropping by with her faux concern and carefully styled hair. Just the rhythm of my old house and the steady hum of my own breath. I should have felt relief. But I didn't. I felt grief. Not for losing them, but for realizing they were never really mine to lose. I'd raised Drew with lullabies, with second-hand storybooks and dinners scraped together on a teacher's salary. I'd thought I was raising a man who'd walk beside me in life, not over me. Now I wasn't sure who he really was. And that terrified me more than the betrayal itself. One chilly Wednesday morning, I walked down to the mailbox and found something unexpected, an envelope from Cassidy. Handwritten. No return address. Just my name in her delicate, looped script. I hesitated. Then opened it. Inside was a letter. Short. Almost clinical. Ellie. I never wanted this to turn into war. I hope, in time, you'll understand that we were trying to protect you, from your own stubbornness. But since you've chosen this path, we're stepping back. Drew is devastated. I hope you're proud. Cassidy. I stared at the words. Protect you from your own stubbornness. As if autonomy were a disease. As if being over 65 automatically made me suspect. I folded the letter and put it in the file marked Documentation, Trust Conflict. Maggie said everything should be documented now. Every whisper, every threat veiled in politeness. I poured myself a glass of iced tea, sat by the window, and stared at the maple tree outside. The leaves were turning, bleeding amber and crimson. It reminded me that even endings could be beautiful. But just as I was beginning to accept the quiet, the storm returned, in the form of a voicemail from Maggie. Ellie, her voice was tight, controlled. Call me. Now. There's something you need to see. My heart dropped. I called back immediately. Maggie answered on the first ring. Did you authorize a psychological evaluation report last month? What? I blinked. No. Of course not. Well, someone submitted a form under your name. Stamped and notarized. They're trying to claim diminished capacity retroactively. Using audio files and witness statements. Witness statements? From who? Maggie hesitated. Your hairdresser. A neighbor. Even someone at the pharmacy. My mouth went dry. They're building a file. Worse, she said. They've already filed a preliminary petition in family court. I just got the notification as your counsel. I sank into my kitchen chair. They're trying to have me declared legally incapable, I whispered. Yes, Maggie said. But don't panic. We're going to fight this. But how? I could barely breathe. They have recordings, manipulated testimony, what if the judge buys into it? That's why we need witnesses of our own, Maggie said. And public support. I glanced outside. A car drove by slowly. It looked familiar, a dark sedan with tinted windows. Paranoia? Maybe. But I no longer believed in coincidence. That night, I called Ruth. And Diane. And Nora from the library club. I asked them, gently, to write letters on my behalf. Stating what they knew of me. My clarity. My independence. The time I organized the entire community book fair last summer. The way I filed Ruth's insurance appeal when she was too overwhelmed to understand the forms. They didn't hesitate. The next morning, I had 6 emails waiting for me. Personal. Honest. Powerful. One from a former student. Mrs. Whitmore taught me how to think critically, how to stand up for myself. If anyone's trying to silence her, I can only assume it's because she still knows how to do both. I cried when I read it. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel small. I felt seen. Later that week, Maggie suggested we hold a private meeting, with one surprise guest. Zoe. Drew's daughter. My granddaughter. 22. Studying at UNC Asheville. We'd lost touch. Cassidy didn't approve of how free-thinking she was, and Drew always towed the party line. But Zoe had reached out on her own. She showed up at my house with lavender hair, chipped black nail polish, and a canvas tote full of art supplies. Hey, Nana, she said. Heard you've been causing a ruckus. I laughed, and then cried. We sat on the porch, and she let me talk. Not just about the documents. But about Tom. About watching Drew become someone I didn't recognize. About the deep ache of being misread by your own blood. Zoe listened. Then she said, you know they tried to get me to testify too? I stared. What? They said they wanted a statement from me. About whether you ever seemed confused. If you repeated stories. If you forgot stuff. My throat closed. I told them no, she said simply. Told them you were more lucid than half the people at my school. And that if they were trying to pull something, I wouldn't be part of it. Thank you, I whispered, reaching for her hand. She squeezed it. Also. I recorded the whole call. Just in case. My eyes widened. You did? She grinned. What can I say? Gen Z is good for something. That night, Maggie added Zoe's recording to our file. And for the first time, we had more than just defense. We had leverage. The hearing was set for 2 weeks later. But I wasn't waiting. I contacted the local newspaper. A woman named Chloe Ramirez, an investigative journalist who'd covered elder abuse and conservatorship fraud in the past. I told her everything. She listened. Took notes. Then said, "This story matters. You're not alone, Eleanor. And when people read this, they'll remember that." 2 days later, her article ran. They called her confused, she fought back with clarity. My phone rang all day. Support. Outrage. People from church, from the old PTA, even my high school debate team partner. And tucked between them, a number I didn't recognize. It was Drew. He left a voicemail. "Mom. I didn't know Cass filed those forms. Not all of them. I think we lost sight of what matters. I don't know how to fix it." I didn't call back. Not yet. Not until I was ready. But deep down, I knew something was shifting. Not just in him. In me. For the first time, I wasn't just reacting, I was reclaiming. If you've ever been made to feel like your voice didn't matter, know this: silence is not consent. And survival is not surrender. Let me know what this part stirred in you. Because I believe stories like these don't just belong to one of us, they belong to all of us. The bailiff called my name. "Eleanor Whitmore?" I stood. My knees were steady, barely. My hands trembled slightly, but I clasped them in front of me, channeling every ounce of my old classroom confidence. I wasn't standing in a high school hallway anymore. This was a courtroom in Buncombe County. And my son, my only child, sat across from me at the petitioner's table. His wife beside him, face blank as polished glass. I never imagined I'd see them here. Not like this. Not trying to take away my voice. My freedom. My very personhood. The judge, a woman in her late 50s with salt and pepper hair and a no-nonsense tone, motioned for me to approach. "Miss Whitmore," she said, "this is a hearing to determine whether the court will proceed with the petition of conservatorship filed by your son, Andrew Whitmore. Do you understand what that entails?" "I do, Your Honor," I said clearly. "And do you contest this petition?" I lifted my chin. With every fiber of my being. There was a pause. The room was quiet, except for the distant whir of an HVAC unit overhead. Then Drew's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, we are prepared to present testimony from several individuals indicating cognitive decline and confusion on Mrs. Whitmore's part. Additionally, we have audio evidence from conversations with her in which she appears disoriented." I wanted to laugh. Or scream. But instead, I reached into my purse and handed a folder to Maggie, who stood beside me like a pillar. She passed it to the judge. "Your Honor," Maggie said, "within that folder are signed letters from 6 individuals, colleagues, friends, and community members, attesting to Ms. Whitmore's sound mind and active engagement in civic life. Additionally, there is an audio recording from Ms. Whitmore's granddaughter, who was contacted by the petitioners and asked to provide misleading testimony. She declined and has documented the interaction." Drew's eyes flicked toward Cassidy. She stared straight ahead. The judge nodded slowly. "We'll review all evidence." The hearing stretched on for over an hour. Testimonies. Counterarguments. My former student gave a short statement via Zoom. Even Ruth, who hates public speaking, showed up to say I helped her file a government appeal she couldn't understand herself. When I was asked to speak, I told the truth. Not just about the betrayal, but about the ache of invisibility that comes with aging in this country. The way people start speaking around you, not to you. About how my own son began treating me like a fragile relic rather than a person with agency. "I taught for over 30 years, I said. I've survived a war widowhood, a mortgage crisis, and the Godawful Common Core rollout. And yet now, Because I sometimes forget which pocket I left my keys in, I'm supposedly unfit to live independently? The judge didn't smile. But I saw something flicker in her eyes. Recognition, maybe. Respect. After closing arguments, the court recessed for deliberation. I waited in the hallway with Maggie, my palms slick with nervous sweat. Zoe sat beside me, headphones around her neck, sketching something quietly in a notebook. "You did good, Nana," she said. "Thanks," I whispered. "I'm just glad your father didn't look at me during any of it." Zoe paused. "He looked. A lot. Just when you weren't looking back." I didn't know what to do with that. So I just nodded. 30 minutes later, we were called back in. The judge looked up from her notes and adjusted her glasses. "This court finds no credible evidence to support the claim that Ms. Eleanor Whitmore is cognitively impaired or in need of conservatorship." I exhaled. My knees wobbled, but I remained upright. Petition denied. Case dismissed. The gavel came down. It was over. But not really. After the hearing, I stepped outside. The air smelled like summer rain and courthouse concrete. A local journalist was already waiting near the curb. The same one who ran my story. Chloe Ramirez. She didn't push. Just gave me a nod and a smile. But the cameras nearby? Those rolled anyway. Because news like this has legs, especially when it peels back the reality of how older Americans are sometimes treated, as property, as problems, as burdens to be managed. Cassidy walked past me without a glance. Drew lagged behind. Then, suddenly, he turned around. "Mom," he said. One word. "Small." I didn't reply. He stepped closer. He stopped. "I'm sorry." I looked at him. This grown man I had once taught to tie his shoes, who now tried to unlace the very foundation of my life. "I know," I said softly. "But I don't know if I forgive you yet." He nodded, eyes wet. "That's fair." Zoe joined me, sliding her hand into mine. And we walked away. It's been 4 months. Life isn't magically perfect. But it's mine again. I still volunteer at the library, still bake blueberry muffins every Saturday morning, still forget where I put my glasses, sometimes. But now, I'm not afraid that a moment of forgetfulness will be weaponized. I've started writing again, short stories, mostly. Maggie says I should publish a memoir. Zoe's helping me format it. And last week, I got a letter. No name on the envelope, but I knew the handwriting. It simply read, "You fought back with grace. Maybe one day we can sit down and start over. Drew." I folded it carefully and put it in a drawer. Not ready to reply. But not ready to throw it away either. Because that's what healing looks like sometimes, imperfect, uneven, and quietly hopeful. If you've stayed with me through this journey, thank you. And if you've ever had to prove your worth, your sanity, your very identity just to keep what's rightfully yours, know that I see you. I am you. So here's my question for you. What would you do if someone you loved tried to take away your voice? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Because maybe, just maybe, when we share our stories, we reclaim a little piece of ourselves, and help someone else do the same. But that wasn't the end. What she did next. I never saw it coming. If you want to know what happened after, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. And hey, what would you have done if you were in my shoes? Let me know in the comments.